You're watching SchreckTeck, where tech is Shrecky. This show is sponsored by Synapse 3DI at www.synapse3di.com and by Relate Corporation at www.relate.com. Well, hello, everybody. This is SchreckTeck. I think it's
Good
episode,
morning.
What are we, number 27, 20? I keep losing track of the episode until we actually publish, but...
You know, Rick, when you get a certain age, you quit counting.
That's right.
So I think that's what it is.
Maybe we're just 39 from now on.
We're in our 20s still. I'm sure we're in our 20s.
That's right.
And we have so much information that I'm excited because this has been a topic for the last couple weeks that I get a lot of questions about since Facebook changed their privacy. So today we are very fortunate to have a good friend of mine and a fellow Coloradan, John Sileo, on. And I just want to give a quick intro. John is actually the president of the Sileo group here in Denver, and he is an identity theft expert, and his expertise comes out of experience. He actually had his identity stolen 2 times, and I'll let him kind of give a brief overview of how that happened, because one of them does frighten me, and we'll talk about shredders and things like that because it ties in. But welcome, John.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's very fun having you on the show finally and talking about a topic that I know it's near and dear to your heart, and I know you're always trying to get me to be safer, and every time I have my wallet sticking out of my purse, I do think of you, John.
And your iPad sitting on a table at Starbucks.
Yeah, every time we meet for coffee or something, he'll remind me of how unsafe I live. And I do have to say that because of John, I now have my phone with a little passcode, which he thinks he knows, and my iPad has a passcode numbered that I have to enter. My laptop, I have to enter a password to do. It's not as in-depth as yours, John, but it works. And Rick, do you keep yours all locked up, all of your gadgets?
Yes. Gadgets are locked up.
Gadgets are locked up. Yeah, John, I think, is so secure. I don't think he tells his children their real birth dates. I think they celebrate a different day every year just to protect their identity. So, that's who's on the show.
So, John, welcome.
Your kids' birthdays.
What's that, John?
I'll tell them your kids' birthdays.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can find it. They're probably on Facebook right there for the world to see. Rick, what did you ask?
I just said welcome.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, so John, give us a brief overview of what got you into, because you've always been in the computer industry and in the software sales, is that right?
Yeah, we started up an internet business kind of early in the internet cycle, and unfortunately it was destroyed because my business partner used my identity to embezzle from our clients. So I spent a couple of really bad years thinking I was going to jail and lost about almost $500,000. Lost the business, pretty much lost everything I had, and started all fresh as an author and a keynote speaker on identity theft.
Yeah, frightening. And that situation, I'm sure there are things that we can all learn from and benefit from. But the second time your identity was stolen was one that kind of freaks me out a little bit because we get so much junk mail. What happened there?
Yeah, in that case, it was somebody took documents out of my trash. We think they were copies of mortgage documents after we had finished buying a home. Took them out of the trash, and it was actually a woman. And this woman purchased a second home in my name, and then she went bankrupt, committed some crimes, and I fought all of that because it looked like it was me.
Wow. Yeah, and that
good.
does worry me because of so many documents that we have. And I try to do everything online now, banking and things, because of statements coming in the mail. But I do have a shredder under my desk.
So, John, were you living in Denver at the time?
I was.
Okay, that's okay. Everybody, don't move to Denver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that is a really scary thing that happens, and to a lot of people. And now, because we do so much online, I think we are more at risk. And I think it has raised my awareness of the information that I carry around. I mean, again, on my phone, I have information that people can access, and apps to access banks and things. So I really made me stop and think about how we enter, data and how we're keeping it safe. John, which actually I want to ask right off the bat, because I've seen a lot of apps that have to do with, one I think was called Identity Lockbox, but I mean, do you use tools like that to keep your information safe on your mobile devices and such?
Yeah, I do. I'm actually a fan of the technology. The tendency is to blame technology for all of the problems, and really it's generally human decisions or misuse of technology that causes the problem. So I personally use 1Password to lock up a lot of my information. If I have anything that I want encrypted or really well protected on a mobile device, or heck, on a laptop, I use programs like 1Password and programs that have been vetted over time, that have done a good job, that don't have a breach history. And we can't possibly keep track of all of this stuff without using technology. The answer is not to give up technology, so you have to use it in really wise ways.
Unless you just use a simple password like password, then you don't have to remember it.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the number of people that still do that. I
know, it is funny because you read those statistics and you go, nobody really does that, but password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, yeah, so it is pretty funny. Which that reminded me of when we were talking about passwords. There was something, I know what I wanted to ask you, because now there are all these programs out that we can pay with our phone, so near field communication and using technology. And again, I don't know as much as you on this issue, but I look at it and say, I think it's safer for me to carry my phone that has a password and everything else than my wallet that has credit cards bulging out. What are your thoughts on near field communication and the ability to pay with our phones?
I think it kind of depends on the application. I would first say none of this stuff is really proven yet. We can talk about the potential threats, we can talk about what we think is going to happen, but nobody really knows yet. I'd say I'm a little bit nervous about mobile banking at this point, and here's why. We put so many apps on our phones and our tablets, and we don't vet them. We don't know that they're safe for the most part, particularly on an open platform like Android. So you could be installing chess on your phone, and what you're doing is when you download it, you are giving it absolute authority to funnel off any other information. In fact, 21 apps were just removed from Android because they were funneling information to organized crime and to North Korea and Iran, places we really don't want our information going.
Tell me it wasn't Words with Friends. No.
What was that?
It wasn't Words with Friends, it was chess, right?
It was chess, yes.
But actually, what people don't realize is what they were sending was actually Angry Bird scores.
Exactly. Because that's valuable. And it is funny because I think sometimes people put really interesting, I look at people's Facebook pages, and the first thing I look at on someone's profile, well, it's not, it's the first thing I look at when I'm looking at this particular topic is how many people put their date of birth, the month, the date, and the year on their profile, and it's showing to the world. And when people tell me I'm afraid that Facebook is giving away all my information, I kind of laugh because I said, it's you that's giving the information away. When you download apps on Facebook and you open up yourself up to all these games that are on Facebook, you're right. It's the third-party apps that usually get you in trouble.
On the other hand, it only takes about 2 minutes to find out just about anything you want on anybody. And if you're willing to pay about $30, you can get a lot of info.
Yeah, that's true. And the problem is, you can build a profile many different ways, and when you're giving additional information away, and what we're kind of training, particularly the younger generation, to do when birthday is a basic part of the profile, you're training them to give that information away. If we can go the other direction and say, listen, not everybody needs to have all of this different information. Let's limit it, and limit it in all the places. So you don't just limit it with Facebook, you limit it with the white pages, you limit it with who you give it to, the Girl Scouts, and you start to pare that down. It won't be the same problem for our kids as it is for us.
I thought it was really interesting and creepy. I watched the piece that you did, I think it was for 60 Minutes, and when you were in New Zealand, and you did that piece of you could find out so much about a person. If you were a stalker and a creeper, you could find out so much by just looking at somebody's Facebook profile, that you could go in, you went into her work environment and started talking to her, and she thought, oh, you must know me. That really was creepy, and that made me think about the discussions I need to have with my girls, because we do share so much, and with the location-based check-in services. What tips do you have for people around that?
You know, I think the message here is you don't have to be paranoid. A lot of this stuff is the 1%. But you do have to be smart. Just like any piece of equipment that you use, you have to take the time to customize the settings. If there's one thing that people aren't doing, they're going in and setting up the profile, and they never take the time to actually customize their privacy settings. They don't go in and say, listen, don't allow people to check me into places. Don't allow friends to pass on photos or information or profile information through third-party apps. And literally all it takes is an hour going in and setting up those privacy settings in the same way that you would, when you buy a new piece of equipment or a new car, you learn to drive it. Same thing with Facebook.
Yeah, it is interesting because, and I think a problem with a lot of kids is they lied about their age when they set up their Facebook account. So if a child is under the age of 18, Facebook does some pretty cool things to protect their identity, where they don't show up in searches, their friend list does not show up. There's a lot of things that they're automatically protected if they're under 18. Unfortunately, if a child puts that they're older than they really are, once you're over 18, that friend list is there. People can see some information based on what you have allowed in your privacy settings, which again, most people don't take the time to go in and say, I don't want my birth date showing, or I don't want at least the year showing, or make sure that my information is not shared with the public, but it's only shared with friends that I'm already connected with. And little things like that. And I know some of the big changes that just took place make Facebook a lot more like Google Plus, in that when you go in and type a post, you can now decide post by post. You don't even have to go into your privacy settings. You type something in the Facebook status and you can decide, send this to just my friends instead of the default public. But even more importantly, I can click on that button, the drop down that's next to the status bar, and say, not only just send it to my friends, but send it to a specific list of friends that I have created, because perhaps my vacation photos shouldn't be going to everyone I'm connected with. Maybe this should go just to my family list, or my family and short list of friends. You have to first go in, like you said, take the time to organize lists on Facebook, create lists, and that's under Edit Friends. And then you can actually start sending. Now, I'll tell you, my daughter is smart. She knows that she says, send this to my friends, and then it'll say, block this post from, and you can type in specific people. Kids know to put in their parents' names if they're connected. So, think about how can we be more protective with our information. I think that's another really important step.
Now, John, you just wrote a book about this subject, didn't you?
I did. I've got a couple that approach it. One is the Facebook Safety Survival Guide, which goes through, social networking, safety settings, customizing, some of that work, and then kind of more comprehensive book published by Wiley, which is called Privacy Means Profit, that goes through everything from identity theft, privacy, data breach, and takes it more into the business realm where I spend a lot of my time. How do you, now that we're all utilizing Facebook personally, a lot of businesses are being compromised on the business side because people are downloading malware, they're sharing information on sites that they shouldn't be.
So are you finding that businesses are also pretty much not very secure?
Businesses are not secure. And Gina, actually, one thing she brought up, which was, the power of social networking is the social part of it, the fact that we are learning more about people. And I can say in the highest confidence that 90% of scams that are run, whether it's Sony PlayStation or Citibank, begin with somebody's social networking profile. They are utilizing that because it gives the thief information on which to get deeper into the company. You know, when I know where you vacationed and what you like and what religion you are and who you relate with, who your friends are, it makes it much easier for me to convince you that I'm trustworthy.
Yeah, good point. Gina,
Yeah,
any questions in the chat room?
I was just looking at that. Oh, yeah, it is Sileo.com, his website. And
Okay,
then
so the website's up right now.
Your other website, John, isn't it Think Like a Spy?
Yeah, thinklikeaspy.com is the other one.
Lots of great resources and information out there. So on the Facebook part, I mean, is there anything beyond our normal privacy settings that we should be doing?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can do. Just little easy tips. For example, a strong password. You know, you mentioned it before, but so many people have a weak password on their Facebook or on many of their accounts that it's very easy for somebody to hack in, account take over, and then of course they're writing your friends asking for money or information. So a strong password. Logging out when you're done. You know, a lot of people don't realize that you go to a computer and utilize it and you're on Facebook. If you don't log out when you're done and that person gets back into Facebook, you are still logged in and they can essentially communicate as you.
Which the interesting thing that all of us as adults need to be aware of is we need to talk to our kids about that, because I think that is so critical. When a bunch of teenagers get together and they have sleepovers, the girls get together, let's say they are on one computer and they'll be logging on, and just like that, they either tell their password to their best friend, who next week is their enemy, or they're logging on with each other. And, you know, I just think we have to teach our kids the importance and the consequences behind that.
I think that's the main point for parents to take away, which is if they're not having a conversation with their kids, and it probably means that they need to explore Facebook and these mediums. If they're not having the conversation, if they're not doing basic things like, you know, when the kids are young, computing in a common area. Now, I realize with mobile devices, you know, that eventually goes away because kids can compute any place they want with just a simple iPod Touch or any device, really. But the parenting aspect of it, of being involved, of having the discussion, letting them know, you know, there's 5 or 6 tips that if the parents were to communicate and help their kids with, would make them radically safer.
And Rick, your kids are older like mine, although, you know, the Shrecklet's only 15. So I'm always talking to her about this, and she's really, it's interesting. She's very smart in the sense that she has a really hard password, but her and I made an agreement. She has written down her password. I have written down my password. We have them in a sealed envelope, and we put them in a file that if there were, you know, God forbid something happened, I could get into her Facebook page if I needed to. But her and I are connected on there, and she's always educating her friends about that. But you know, I think the whole thing, I get a lot of questions, and that was one of the questions we got earlier in the week on Twitter was, you know, how do you protect kids? I mean, do you use filters on your browsers? And, you know, the number one thing is make it a discussion you have all the time about online safety and predators out there. And not that you want to scare your kids, but when they're young, you do want a computer only in a common area. I don't think kids should have computers or TVs in their rooms. I just think it's you're opening yourself up to exposing them to things they shouldn't be.
But you know what's funny, Gina?
Exposed to.
But on the other hand, everybody gives them phones and lets them go into their room, which is just as dangerous.
Once they're at a certain age and they have their own phones or they have their computers, you know, now in junior high and high school, many kids are required to have laptops, or, you know, they're using laptops more. So yeah, then you have to have that level of trust. And I think, I mean, with Bailey, I'm always saying, you know, when your friends are over, you guys shouldn't have the door closed as if you're hiding something. You know, there's this feeling. And I said, even though I trust you, I want your friends to also know that they're in a house that's open communication, that they can talk to me about things, that there's nothing that's secret. And, you know, your own parental rules come into play. I'm always the head of the Mean Parents Club, so we've always had those kind of things. And And I just think, yeah, you can on any browser put in there some controls that it won't pull up certain content, and you want to have that on there. But and there's even programs you can buy that are really good that will help screen the content that comes onto certain computers. But I think the bottom line is you need to be involved when it's online safety, and you need to educate and talk about it all the time. I just think it's one of those discussions. Sadly, most parents don't understand Facebook and their privacy settings enough to educate their kids.
No.
And I still hear parents say, oh, my child, I don't allow them on Facebook, and they're 15 or 16. And I laugh going, they're on there. You just don't know it.
Now, John, do you still, email seems to be one of the biggest ways people just get duped. And, you know, I'm amazed that after, 15, 16 years, we're still getting emails from the ex-emperor of some African country with $20 million. And people still open this stuff, obviously, because we get probably about 20 a day of those. They go into the spam, but obviously there's still a lot of that. And I wonder how many people actually fall for that and what happens afterwards.
Okay, here's a great question on why social media is so powerful for fraud. 6% of people roughly fall for the emails, for those phishing type emails or Nairobi scams, 419 scams, whatever you want to call them. More than 30% of people fall for them when it comes from a trusted source on a social networking site. So somebody takes over Gina's account because she's got a bad password, and now they send the scam, which is, I'm overseas, I've lost my passport, I've been mugged, I need you to send money. So because of that trust link that the social network provides, it goes up exponentially, which is why all of this, yes, it's still on email for those who aren't on social networking, but it's quickly moving and being dominated by Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, those type of.
I got hit by a porno virus, if you can believe that. It was in an email from our Lexus car salesman. Now I went, he's sending me a joke. All right, well, I'll open it. The minute I opened it, this is over a decade ago. This is probably about 97. I opened it, and I heard my computer go, woo! And I went, and it sent out a worm, basically, that got all of my contacts. I had about 3,000 links that went out to everybody else with the same exact message saying, hey, John, take a look at this. This is funny. And, of course, everybody I knew did that. And that one spread around the country literally in about 2 hours from everybody. I mean, we got hit. Thousands and thousands got hit. It took systems down. And that was your typical thing. It was trusted. I fell for it, and I don't open jokes anymore from people I know, especially if they're encrypted.
And we all know on Facebook and Twitter, the big thing right now on Twitter, it's out of control. It's you're in this funny picture, or I just found this hilarious video that you're in, and I keep thinking, how many do we have to see before people get the concept that you don't click on links from people that you don't know. You don't click on links, even though you do know them, you might be connected with them, if it even sounds suspicious. I mean, I get a lot of Twitter things that just have a link. It's just a tweet to me with a link. Never will I click on those. Even if it's from somebody that I know very well, they better send me why I should click on it. And and then we start looking at those common themes. But John, your Twitter identity was interesting because 2 or 3 years ago when Twitter first came out, I remember being on the trail preaching to people, get your Twitter name before someone else does. Just even if you'll never use the account, get your Twitter name. I mean, I went on and got Twitter accounts for my kids, kind of like getting domain names. I have those for my kids before someone else does. Tell us what happened with your Twitter account.
Yeah, one of my main competitors got it before I did, and it was, very, very early on. So, and then pointed it to all of his materials. So he was, and this has happened, which is very funny because, we deal in identity theft here. Essentially, it was somebody using my identity to drive business to themselves. Ultimately, we won because my name is trademarked in the space, and Twitter ruled in our favor. But it was 2 years that it took to go through that process.
Yeah, it's amazing. And think of the lack of complete ethics in doing that too. I mean, aside from it all.
The lesson I thought was you can fight back and win. Not always, but in your case, this person just grabbed the John Sileo, at John Sileo on Twitter, never really was using it, except they had a link that went to their site and a picture of a scary clown. And because that person didn't utilize the account in a way that looked ethical, Twitter saw that as a valid when John went to him saying, I'm having to use John_Sileo, which now, fortunately, you have both of them. I think all of us need to look at that and say, if we find somebody that's utilizing our name, our business name, look at your avenues to fight back and win.
Yes, but it gets exhausting trying to keep up with all the latest, the latest social networks that you have to be part of, and you have to be part of for your kids, and I see why people are overwhelmed with it.
Well, and I have a question. The chat room might know this. There is a site that you can go to. You type in your name. So I would type in Gina Schreck, and it will tell me what social networks out there I have my name secured and which ones I do not. I can't remember the name of the site. I've done that before, and it tells you if your name is available, and even to just go and set up just your basic name and on those, so no one else can do it, especially if they're popular sites. Or is that a bad idea? I mean, I was like,
no,
as long as you're not putting any information
I think it's good.
there.
I mean, one thing about this whole topic is, you want to own your own credentials. So for your kids and your spouse, yourself, I think it's worthwhile. Obviously, there's, you're not going to be using all of those sites to compute on. That there would be a risk in doing that. But I think owning the retail space of it is a good idea.
Yeah, I've gone on and just put I've set up the account, and then I put as the main message on there, find me on, and I put my Facebook page, or find me on Twitter, so that they know how they can get a hold of me, but no one else can set up camp there. Let's see. I don't see anybody that has that answer yet. We'll get that, because I think I'll put that in the show resources. That's a good place to go and start grabbing your names. Let's see, there was another, somebody had asked, what are the main changes in Facebook, and are they really different? I kind of gave my overview on that. Is there anything that you have found, John, in the new rollouts that are any different than just being able to send content to different people?
I think that there's kind of three basic areas. They've put what they call inline audience selector, which is, does everyone see it? Do my friends see it? Or everyone is now called public? Or does a list see it? Taking the time, as Gina said, to set up a list so that when you send out vacation pictures, it's going only to the people that you want to see them. The second is you can view your profile now. You can see how others see it. And that gives you a much better sense of what you're sharing and what you're not sharing. Do you actually want your religion, your political views, your birth date, sexual orientation, do you want that stuff showing or not? And by being able to view it as others view it, it gives you a good idea. And the third is the tagging. They now let you reject being tagged before others can see it, before it goes onto your profile. And that's because...
That's big.
That's big. I think that's huge, because people were having photos from one context put in another context where they have coworkers, they have clients, and you have to be able to regulate what others see about you. Just like now, you wouldn't post, you wouldn't carry around a photo, when you're walking through Starbucks. And it's the same online. You don't necessarily want every picture you're in up there. That you've got to have some discretion.
Well, Bailey, the Schrecklet, and I were the first ones to change that setting, because my older daughter, whenever we go anywhere, so we'll go hiking, and she'll be taking pictures the entire day. We laugh because we say she finds the most unflattering photos of us, and she posts those on Facebook. And so we immediately change it so that we have to approve those before they get put on our page. So it was a complete vanity thing, not anything to do with privacy. But I like that fact that you can now approve anything, posts or pictures that get tagged. And again, go into your privacy settings and make sure you just check out those new settings, and you'll see what people can share, and that's under there. Somebody asked
Well, that's a really good idea for business too, because they can take things that you're doing and all of a sudden try to make it like their own, or who knows what.
if it
definitely an
doesn't
issue.
represent your brand, your personal brand, it shouldn't be on your page. I mean, and that's a message I preach to people. They even load their own content that is not representative of their brand. And
Right.
even if it's not a business, it's still, you want to manage your, I mean, I get on my college daughter all the time. I said, take a look at your profile right now, because there's content on there that should not be representing you. Manage your brand, your online reputation, goes wherever you go. Somebody asked about on Twitter here, how do you find the view as? If you click on your profile on Facebook, not your home link, but the profile link at the top, you'll see at the top there's now a button that says view as. And you can even put in a specific person. Maybe you've blocked someone, or you have special privacy settings set for a particular person that they can only see certain content, because Facebook's very granular with their privacy settings. So you can type their name in. Let me see what my profile looks like to, creepy Uncle Eddie, and it'll show you. Or show me what my profile looks like to the public, and it will show you.
You're talking about Twitter?
No, on Facebook. The
On
view
Facebook,
as that you mentioned a minute ago, that you can go view your profile as the public views it. You can even be more specific on Facebook and say, let me see what my profile looks like to a specific person. You can type their name in, and it will show you what they're able to see. Because you can go in and say, anybody can view the photos in this photo album except for these 3 people. Maybe they're ex-boyfriends, and I don't want them seeing these photos. And you can be that specific. Now, keep in mind with all of this, if I say share these pictures with only these friends, those friends could still say share. They could then pass your content on. So you're still not completely protected. I just live by the rule, don't put anything on there that you don't want the world to see, because they could pass it on.
Yeah, they could. I mean, what we say around here is when you post it, it's public, it's permanent, and it's exploitable. So if you take a look at everything you put up, whether you think you've got it private or not, in the end, it's public, because somebody else can pass on what you put up without any effort whatsoever. So when you put it up, it's public. When you put it up, it's permanent. It's screenshot. I a year ago put up a negative comment about a web designer that I was working with. Didn't think about it, tweeted it, and pulled it off minutes later. In the meantime, it had been passed around so many times. It had been screenshot. I mean, I was out of line doing it, and yet I had no way to take it back. It's permanent when you put it there.
And that literally happened in minutes?
Oh, yeah.
It happened in minutes.
Wow.
Gina, were you part of that at all when I
remember that? Yeah, I remember you and I talking about that. When you send someone a direct message, when you're newer on Twitter, that happens all the time. I've been on Twitter for years, and I still at times, using my mobile device, sometimes I'll put a message on there that was meant for a direct message to someone, and I forget to put the D in the front or something that causes it to go out to everybody. And once I put my cell phone number and said, call me at 10, and then I got all kinds of tweets back. Did you mean all of us? So yeah, and John had put a direct message, but it went out as an @ reply. And you're right, even though you delete it, it was already passed around, and which is kind of funny.
So Gina, at that point, it wasn't Jenny, it was Gina.
It was Gina.
I saw your number on the wall.
The number's already on the bathroom wall. It really didn't matter. So I think the lesson, and I think the message that we know, but again, I think we need to continue talking about it, because our young people don't know this, is that everything you post online could be public. Even if you think that it's going out private, it could be. I mean, there's nothing from stopping me from copying your message, pasting it into another message, and sharing it with everybody, even if it was private.
And by the way, people do that.
They do that.
We've been hit by, I'll do a post for a company, let's say, I think in this case, it was Adobe Connect. I did a post for them. Another company, not very ethical, took that post with my name on it and changed the link. So they changed my post, basically, to their website. And by the way, to top it off with stupidity, we were their customers. So I called them up, pretty much reamed them, and said, what the hell are you guys doing? And it's like, oh, we're sorry. That's stupid. Not only that, it's really unethical. It is.
But,
Hey, John, before we finish this show, Can you tell us a little bit about what you do, what kind of services you offer, and how people can contact you?
Absolutely. A majority of what I do is help bring awareness to the topic, identity theft and data breach. I speak to corporations. I speak a lot for the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, Fortune 1000s, and then just smaller companies who are trying to figure out this whole data security equation. How do I protect the information inside of my business? Great example was there were a series of attacks that were based on a spouse of a soldier tweeting a troop location. And they were bombed based on this, what she thought was commonly known information. So this stuff really does, we tend to think of it in a pretty light, getting in touch with people type of way, but it's very serious. Best way to get in touch with me is either through my website, my commercial website, which is thinklikeaspy.com. If you're interested in having me do a keynote or a workshop type session, or my blog site, which is sileo.com, just my last name, SILEO.com.
So, and I have a question. Is it unsafe to wear your name on T-shirts?
I wouldn't.
Is that a bad idea?
Okay, here's a really weird one. There's a professor in, I think he's at Carnegie Mellon, who has made this app that you can not get publicly for the iPhone. You can take a picture of somebody. It uses PitPat, which is facial recognition software that I think was purchased just recently by either Google or Facebook. It will meld it with your Facebook profile, your Google profile, and with 40% accuracy, we'll come back, just by having taken a picture, we'll come back with the person's social security number, because in the Facebook profile, it gives your date of birth, your hometown, and your name. Those are the three things that you need to get somebody's social.
Oh, so hometown. So change our hometowns.
Well, it's interesting because we worry about Big Brother. In reality, it's cousin and little sister we have to worry about, because everybody's basically doing the same thing. Everybody's watching everybody. A little scary, actually.
And you know what is interesting? At 2:30 today, I have a call with a guy who started a company called Face Tags, and I think that is what they're doing. He's the CEO of this Face Tags, and I wanted to see what it was and learn more about it, because I think this whole facial recognition software is becoming more and more popular. And I mean, it's been around for a long time, but I think that's another scary thing. Gosh, the information that's out there.
Yeah, it is. And what are we going to do? I mean, we're photographed or videotaped 450 times or something a day. It's not like we're going to walk around wearing a mask. So we got to figure out other solutions.
Well,
burkas. We got to wear burkas. That's it.
Well, and I read a statistic that said 97% of children by the age of 2 in the United States have a digital footprint, because their parents blog about them, because they're on Facebook, because of all that. Kids have a digital footprint by the age of 2. So I think we need to rethink how we're sharing content and just being more, careful. And John, I can't remember. Your girls are old enough. Do they have Facebook accounts?
They actually don't. We have made it available to them, but they obviously have been part of this conversation since the very start, since early MySpace, and they're in their early teen years. So they have chosen not to, not because of the security issue, strangely enough, but because of the social issues that come out of it. They see an awful lot of bullying. They see a lot of clique behavior that comes out of it. And they have decided that they're going to be in-person communicators.
Look at you. What a good job you did.
I'm sure it'll change. I'm not naive enough to think that they're not going to partake in these. But if you can get them old enough and wise enough first,
and I think that's the bottom line, is talking about it.
Yep, that's
Educate
good.
them.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our show.
We did. We kept it under an hour.
Yep. John, really appreciate you being here. Some great advice, and we've been putting up your website throughout the whole show, so hopefully more people will contact you. And we have at least 6 viewers, so I think we'll be okay.
And if you have more questions, be sure to post them, and I'll get the answers, and we'll put them on the SchreckTeck Facebook page that we just launched. So be sure to go over there and like that page, and you'll see we'll post the show recording later. we'll also post any resources and links to sites that we mentioned. And I'll have that link for that website to grab your name. So thanks so much, John.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. You have a good one. And Gina, till next week. Who do we have on next week, Gina?
Oh, next week. It's interesting. We have the founder of an interesting company here in Colorado, Vivax Painting. So it's a contractor, goes out and paints homes, but they have built their business using social media. And it's really interesting because how they stay in touch with their customers and build real close relationships on customer retention. So I'm excited to hear some of their strategies. So Jessica will be on next week from Vivax Painting.
Sounds good.
Sharing those tips and tools. So have a great week. You guys keep getting techie.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Bye.